Hey, hey.
Hey, how's it going today?
Not too bad. It's sunny in Michigan, and I was just checking my because I have solar panels, so every time I see the sun out, especially in Michigan because it gets uber cloudy in the winter, I'm like, oh, I get vitamin D, and then the solar panels are kicking out electricity. So
Perfect.
I get giddy over that.
Yeah, it is approaching 80 right now over here in Southern California.
Oh man,
Probably in the 90s by the time we hit mid-afternoon here. So we're in a little bit of a heat wave. Got all the windows closed, no fresh air coming into the house.
see, it's only 59 where I'm at, which is actually that's like probably 64 is like perfect weather for me.
Yeah, that's perfect because it's still, especially if it's sunny, because you can go out and
Yep.
take your walk or your jog, whatever you're into, and it's perfect. It's cool enough where you don't get too hot, but not so cold that you have to wear a sweatshirt.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I know you had mentioned some new stuff that we kind of just want to that you want to bring up today and kind of go through there, and then I think we can start there and then kind of see where that leads us, and then I think we Robert and I have a good plan for next week's call. So anybody watching this, stay tuned, and we'll kind of tell you, uh, give you a little preview of what that's going to be. So with that, I don't know, Robert, if you want to cover some of the new
Yeah.
stuff that you've been searching on.
Yeah. So this is interesting, and it's like really a set difference, and I think it was the same. This is with Accenture, and then this was I think it was last year or the year before. I think Accenture got tagged where they published a study for a contract that they had. I think it was with the government or whoever, where they basically the deliverable was all AI generated, and you could tell because it was all like totally, the M dashes were in there, and then there was like
Yeah.
stuff in there that's like, would you like to improve this in the deliverable that they got paid millions. So
Oh
they
wow.
they uh, they got their contract taken away. This kind of stuff happened, and I think they learned their lesson. So they've been basically improving things internally. And then basically now what they're doing is they have an AI first mandate, which is just hit. And so right now they're in the experimental phase of an enterprise AI adoption, which it looks like that's officially over. And now they're pushing for everybody's essentially eating and sleeping AI. So what
Okay.
they're doing is they're trying employee appraisals and promotions directly to the usage aligned with AI tools. So
Oh
if you're
wow.
not eating and sleeping AI tools and using them in everything that you're doing, then that's going to basically be a handicap. And then for project and program managers, which is essentially what I've been doing, my bread and butter in the past,
Yep.
AI fluency is table stakes. So a new industry report released this week highlights that while AI won't replace strategic leadership and human, in loop decisions, et cetera, of PMs, tools that automate like kind of risk assessment,
Yep.
resource allocation, sprint reporting, things like this. It's basically all these agile teams and enterprise leaders are basically on the cusp of using the AI tools to essentially help their reporting. That could be workflows, et cetera. I myself, as much as I can, have been eating and sleeping AI. So, that's like the low hanging fruit is every meeting that you have should be recorded. Every meeting that you have, you should have the transcript, create notes, and that should no longer be like a day to day duty of anybody. Let the AI do that,
Yep.
and let it take off. In fact, everybody can have that skill set now, even if you're an engineer developer and you don't have to have a PM basically, doing this kind of effort. So anyway,
Yep.
that's like really the big push out there, even from what my previous profession looks, at its core, doing project management, which is basically the glue between everything. Um, so the other thing, and this is another thing I'm feeling myself, and we talked about this on a previous, is essentially the PC hardware memory crisis. It's now gone to the nth degree. You know, if you thought it was hitting the ceiling, now it's hitting the stratosphere, basically. So if you're planning on building a PC, upgrading anything on your personal computer, get ready. You know, the hardware market is officially ringing the alarm on
Oh,
memory
wow.
prices. If you need RAM, you're going to be paying up the wazoo for RAM. I've seen posts on Reddit where people are paying, you know, $2,000. We talked about this previously, but it's even gotten higher and it's even more. In fact, my wife dropped her laptop. I had to go and get the laptop replaced. But fortunately for me, I just had to move over the SSD, but not the RAM because we went from DDR4 to DDR5, and upgrading her to that one, just 16 gigs of RAM was like $300. You know, that's like
Wow.
that's that's a lot of money just for 16 gigs of RAM, which is like the base minimum to operate a computer.
Yeah,
The
and that's barely. I mean, 16 gigs these days, like, barely operates a computer. So
Right, it's just turn the lights on, you know.
yeah,
And so the other thing is this demand for edge AI is exploding apparently. So at NVIDIA's GTC conference this week, the focus was heavily on running autonomous AI agents. And these are ones are like, actually, you know, we talked about a little bit of the open claw stuff. These
yep,
are agents that are geared towards helping you use that open claw method and platform on RTX PCs. So these local models can draw context directly from personal files and all that, and then they've built into it a layer of security to at least help with that big open gap with configuring OpenClaw, which is like it was like a security minefield out there. So that was a
yeah,
big
yeah,
thing with NVIDIA this week. Now, one thing also about NVIDIA that I wanted to piggyback on is basically the CEO of NVIDIA had almost like a little talk, and I'm gonna kind of set the stage here too. Just earlier this week, I was on I think it was LinkedIn, and I saw a video. And the video was a developer, and what the developer was doing was sitting there doom scrolling while in the background you could see his monitor, and the monitor was basically you could see it doing code by itself. And the caption was,
wow,
"This is the new developer," where you basically press a button like Homer Simpson, and then the automation comes, all that, which you know goes into some stuff that we'll talk about later. But here's the interesting thing that the CEO of NVIDIA was talking about. He says, "We're in the stage now that if my developers are not eating through 250,000 tokens, a week, or I think it was a week or day or whatever it was, then they're not using the tools effectively enough." He essentially said, "You have these tools now that make you superhuman. You need to be superhuman. Just like
yeah,
just like you cannot design a building using the old pen and paper blue, architecture style. Everybody's gone to AutoCAD, and you would be laughed out of a architecture, design building if you started going in there with rough drafts made by hands. That people they're like, no, we're on AutoCAD.
right,
For development,
right,
now we're at the level that all code is now essentially going to be augmented by AI, and all the minutia is going to be done with it. So basically, what he was saying is, you need to use it and you need to crank out code like tomorrow, because you have the AI tools to do it. Let's use your brilliance at full
yeah.
throttle. So just wanted to point that out. That was very interesting little video. And then I think after we post this recording in the comments, I should be able to upload the recording to that, or a link to that interview, and
I think
so
you
that
can,
should
yeah.
be pretty good. um,
Yeah, that's really fascinating on 2 points there to kind of tie in. I stopped sharing, but I pulled up the first result for on Amazon for RAM, and I don't know if you saw the screen that I was sharing. The very first result was for a collection of memory chips, $22,000. Yeah, so now it is for 768 gigs of RAM, but $22,000 it was the price tag. I don't think that, I've done a lot of buying RAM chips and things on Amazon, and I've never seen anything pop up for $22,000
No,
ever.
I mean that's insane. You know,
Yeah,
I
and
really made out last year because I rebuilt a computer and put 64 on it. The laptop I'm using for this, I originally bought it. It had 16 gigs, and then I was like, no, we can't deal with the minimum. And then I stuffed
yeah,
64 in this one, and I think the 64 for that one was $334. I think it was, which is basically what 16 gigs are, and then it gets like exponentially more, the higher you go. It's just crazy.
yeah. If I'm looking at it now, so like the G Skill 64, is this 64? Yeah, 64 gig, $600 is what is going on right now. So,
Oh my goodness.
so 600, 630, Crucial, their lower end chip, 442. Yeah, so it's expensive because oh my gosh, the Corsair Vengeance, their higher line, 926.
926 for
Yeah.
fractional. Basically, when you get to that high
Or,
performance, you're basically like really, really close, to performance is like almost not noticeable.
yeah, this for the DDR5 and 6,000 megahertz. So
Right.
yeah, it's one of the faster ones, but 926. Oh wow, and the Kingston Fury, $1,100
It's funny that
for.
the branding of the name of the RAM is like is in line with how bad how crazy the pricing. You got Vengeance, and then now higher
Yep.
than that is Fury. We're furious about this price, and this price is giving us
Yep.
Vengeance. I just want to look at the market and see who's going to fill the gap for lower cost RAM, because somebody, after all these deals were made, to these big data centers where they're paying a contract for RAM that hasn't even been manufactured yet, who can come and fill that void for the market that is just basically residential and non-commercial use, for people at
Yep.
home or people that want to just experiment with AI, and maybe you do need basically 96 or 128 gigs of RAM or something, but not spend 22 grand on it. There has to be something to fill that void because the market is ready for it. This is just
Yeah.
crazy. um,
Yeah, and RAM is only one aspect that these data centers are starting to cause issues in. So I was reading an article, and all these data centers need power backup and power
yeah,
generators. And now, when I say a power generator, we're not talking about the ones that you pour a gallon of gasoline in and it runs over in the side yard. These things are like the size of semi trucks. And I forget which one it is because the story was based on this one. It's one of the largest ones that's being built right now, and I just forget what the name is. But they needed 25 of these generators as backups, and the price of each generator, as you can imagine, is very expensive. I think, I want to say $10 to $20 million each. But there is currently a 24-month wait list for generators, and there's really only two main manufacturers of these generators in the entire U.S. So,
I wonder if that's going to spill over into the battery space then. If they can't get generators fast enough,
yep,
maybe they can get the commercial grade, the gigawatt powered, ones that have like gigawatts of storage in there. That like Franklin, Tesla, and there's some other, I forgot what the other companies that are making them, because just by my house, coincidentally, across the street from the location we talked about last week where they were proposing to put that data center in, DTE Energy is essentially putting a huge battery bank in that area on there. And then, yeah, there's these batteries that are essentially the size of a vehicle, like an SUV out there. So I wonder if
yep.
this is going to spill over where people can't wait 24 months for backup generators. They need, some type of backup system now.
Yep, exactly. And
Yeah, this is
so yeah, there's a shortage. That's one data center, and we've talked about it before, but there's hundreds of them being built. So I'm assuming somebody will step in and fill that demand. But if you can build a generator, the time is now.
yeah. I think the other thing I have is some EV stuff. So it looks like the electric vehicle market is navigating what analysis this week are calling a messy middle. So I guess it's like the consumer ED adoption is hitting complex phase. So you've got auto manufacturers are shifting their strategic focus towards smart manufacturing and physical AI to cut essentially costs. And then automakers, as an example, like Tesla, Xpeng, Lee, they're pivoting towards humanoid robots. So they
Okay.
basically have realized that high performance battery packs, coincidentally what we just talked about, um, high torque motors and vision systems developed for their AIs are the exact components that need power for these autonomous robots, effectively turning their core product from cars into robots, and essentially four wheels. So now we're seeing, the auto industry or some manufacturers as a subset shifting their focus away even from vehicles themselves, which I hope that doesn't provide its own, basically limit on productivity. I couldn't see that happening though with what's the company? I think it's the Chinese company BNY. I think it is. They're basically cranking out EVs like Pez. So hopefully that doesn't. And then basically the final thing is there's a massive wave of AI model that dropped just the other week. It's GPT 5.4 from
Yep.
OpenAI, and then it's
Yep.
basically has a 1 million token context window. And I guess they had a breakthrough where it allows dynamic tool search architecture instead of front loading every command into the prompt. That basically
Okay.
it autonomously searches for the right tool as it's needed in real time,
Okay.
basically with that, and then it basically cuts down on the latency of the workflows. So that's some other news, and that's basically
Yep.
what I had.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, just to kind of expand on a few of those topics, those are all really good. Yeah, that's a big improvement on the ChatGPT context window. It's still the latest model from Google, though, is still I believe 2 million tokens, so they're still pretty far behind. And then you have Claude, which I don't know what their context window is, but they have a really good agent flow. So one of the things I've been experimenting on is a little bit similar to what you just kind of mentioned in ChatGPT. It's probably not exactly the same, but basically, I have it using agents to do the subtasks so that it doesn't fill up the context window. Because basically, once you start filling up that context window, so like if you're, let's just say a simple thing, you're developing a small automation application that you want to use, by yourself or whatever, and as usual, you're gonna start adding features, and you continue this conversation, and over time, that context window starts to get large, and what happens is it starts to fill the memory, and basically the AI will start to hallucinate, and that's one of the main problems. That's why when on these large
Yeah.
projects, that's where you get that hallucination from. And I watched a video where somebody explained it really well. So the way that he explained it is that if I give you a set of numbers, if I said, hey, Robert, remember, 10 and 20, no problem. You can remember 10 and 20. I can give you another one. I go, remember 100 and 150. And you'll go 10, 20, 100, 150, no problem. But the more and more I start adding on there, you'll go, Guy, what was that first number? Was it 10 and 20 or was it 10 and 25?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and you may remember all of them pretty good, but that first one might be 25 as opposed to 20. And the same thing with AI, and that's basically what happens. So there's a few. Maybe we can touch on this in another Friday called, but there are a few things that you can load into. I know Claude, I'm sure that you can do it in the other platforms as well,
Mhm.
that kind of measure that context percentage. And that's kind of a critical number. I know you can view that all in most of the applications by going into settings, or you can just ask it and it'll tell you how. But really, you never want that percentage to be over 50%. Once it gets over 50%, your model or whatever you're working on within that context is going to start hallucinating.
Right.
So how do you resolve that? Well, the current way that a lot of people do, and I'm sure you've seen this, you're in the middle of a task and they'll say compacting conversation to
Yep.
perform better. Well, the reason it's compacting the conversation is for that exact reason. Now, the issue though is when you compact the conversation, you lose a lot of context that might be important. So so if you switch over to this new model or way of working, you basically farm out subtasks that provide context, but all the work is in a different agent, so it doesn't fill up your context window. So you might have a sub agent write you the code for the front end, while you leave the design and how you want it to look in your main context. So you never lose that context of how you want, but hey, the code is done by the sub agent. And if there's ever a problem, you can pull up that sub agent context and then bring that in and then kind of work through the issues. So that is one thing that I started. I just started deploying that on a new application that I'm building. And it's fascinating. So if anybody hasn't ever tried it, but in Claude, there's a plugin that's called superpowers. And once you give Claude superpowers, you can, the idea behind it is whenever you're going to go start a new application, you want it to build correctly. So instead of using just your standard prompt to build an application like, hey, I want to build an application that does X, Y, and Z. If you ever have plans to make it a enterprise ready app, or you want full security or the right architecture or something that is repeatable, there's a lot more than just putting that into the prompt. And so what the superpowers does is that it has a brainstorm. And when you put in the brainstorm, you start off just the same. I want an app that is going to replace my CRM tool. And then basically what the superpowers does in the brainstorming session is it now farms off a bunch of sub agents that go and they start building the architecture and the plan. So it'll ask you specific questions, and then the output. And I just had one. It's an idea that I'm working on right now, so I can't share it. But basically, the output was amazing. It looks like something. It's very similar to the types of documents that I would see internally at places like AT&T and DirecTV, when there was like a new new application design document. So basically is a in-depth design document. But what was fascinating when I did this is I think it took 9 agents, and the agents were basically evaluating each agent's work. So somebody would go in and go, okay, the user said they wanted this, they want this kind of authentication. There is 2 subgroups. And then the other agent would build that architecture. The third agent would come in there from a different perspective and say, oh, well, really, if you have this, you're going to have a conflict in the email. So you got to set up tokens, and then it would go to another agent to rewrite the plan. And then you had the fourth agent who took all that stuff and then basically put it all together. And then the other agents, the other 4 agents, were all specifically tasked for certain things like authentication, design. And so it was this large orchestration. I think 30,000 tokens just to get my first draft. But it turned out basically I don't know how big it was. It was like a 25-page design doc that I could basically take to a development team, and they'd know exactly how to build this app. And then, so the idea behind it is, now that I have that, the next step is now I feed that into an implementation plan, and which I'm about halfway through that right now. And that one's just taken a lot. That one is used 20 agents, but it is basically what platforms, how to all the code integration, endpoint configurations. And so now basically once the implementation is done, it's already built the framework in Git for me. So, and all the connectors. So then the last step will be just to wire it up, and that'll be a separate plan. And then the app will launch. But the key is that the app launches with a very specific framework where I know that all the things, from the database to the authentication to the emails, they're all in separate boxes, built correctly on a foundation that I know what's happening.
Right.
So that was it was kind of exciting to see it because I've built apps the other way, where I just give it a prompt and let it go to town. And then what typically, if I have 3 or 4 apps, they're all built on different technologies because it's going to take, the shortcut or what feels easiest at the time. So that is one way to avoid it. But, that's fascinating, the switch over in ChatGPT. And I think as things start going, that is going to be more the process. And actually, that is really the process that a lot of the enterprise teams are doing internally, because you can't, as fun as it is to go, hey, build me a CRM tool that's like HubSpot.
Right.
Everybody can go do that. Open up Claude, do that. It's going to build you one that looks kind of cool. But now, can you scale that to work across the enterprise? Probably not, just using that prompt.
It's it is interesting. So a couple things. So how many tokens did you use for that? You said 30,000?
It was on one task. I don't know. Let me look really quick. Let me see if
because we could call up Jensen from NVIDIA and say that you're about 20% of his goal of 250K tokens.
I'm looking here. So let me see. I thought I don't have the token tracker thing installed yet. That's next on it, but it does pop up, and it was telling me how many tokens. Oh, here, I'll just ask. Let me just ask how many.
And by the way, while you're looking that up, one novel, like a written novel, is typically 100,000 tokens. So like in Gemini's reference of 2 million tokens, or even OpenAI's, they hit 1 million. That's 100,000 novels. It's huge, but it's still not enough. It's interesting. And the other thing, while you're looking that up, is think about this conversation in 10 years and all the little workarounds that have to be done to manage around this context window, and how that'll essentially be a non-issue in the future, where we're doing, it's almost like we're doing all these manual processes to use these AI tools. In the future, the AI, likely will be able to, do all that by itself and then self-improve in a way that it doesn't even have those limitations.
Yep. Here, I'll share this. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I could share this. Yeah, let me share this here. I'll show you. This is let me just get the right screen. Oh wait, let's see if I can share. I don't know if I can share the desktop version. Let me see if I can. Hold on. I think I can. There it is. Let me see. No. Oh wait, there we go. No, I can't. This one won't let me share the desktop version of this app. But anyways, I'll give you. So, are you ready? This is phase 1 to do all the design and spec. Now, phase 1, it's more than just that. It's that design doc, it's the implementation plan, and it's all the stubbing in Git. So it created the whole project, and so it's done a lot.
Yep.
So I have used 710,000 tokens.
There you go. We're calling NVIDIA up right now. And
yep. And let me see if it says how many sub-agents I used. No, it doesn't say how many sub-agents, but there was basically, it was 3 tasks broken down into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 3 tasks broken into 12 specific things, and each of those specific things had about 5 agents running on it. So there's probably in the background probably about 50 agents running on this.
Nice.
So anyways, if you're token sensitive, this is probably not the route to go. Right. But if you want something that is a solid implementation plan, then this is the correct way. So I'm building. This is for something that it's one of the ideas that you know about it, Robert. But it's one of the ideas that RevSpark AI is going to be putting into the portfolio for some of their business apps.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be, I'm designing this one to be an enterprise grade application, and that's why I'm taking the time to go through and building the architecture correctly.
Nice. Yep. That's it. Well, good.
Yep.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's it's just interesting to see all these articles on all the management to keep within the context window and all the orchestration. That yes, we're accelerating and doing things, but it's almost like we're still doing all kinds of stuff to make things happen. It's almost like when text messaging first came out, you'd have to send multiple texts because you were limited to 100 characters or whatever. And
yep,
now there's emojis. We don't have to flip the pager upside down to say hello and do all this other stuff. It's just all kind of built in. And now we're living in, oh, AI can do coding, but by the way, we have a limitation on the context window, and I have to do over this and compress it, and hopefully it summarizes the right things to go to the next all this other stuff on here. And then in 5 years, people are just going to press the button and magic will happen.
yeah. I think that's where it's going. So yeah, so with that, I think that's a perfect time to like say kind of preview what we want to share next week.
Yeah.
And it's essentially just what you landed on. So when you are at the stage where, I mean, we're kind of close on some of the easier things, we are pretty close to that. If you want a simple CRM tool and you don't want to pay HubSpot $25 and you're using it by yourself or with a team, yeah, just go in there and ask Vertex AI, Claude, ChatGPT to build one, and you got it, and it'll work for you. So with that said, what is really the difference between doing that, a HubSpot, and using something like GCP or AWS? There is a large difference between how your application is architected.
Right.
So when you look at a platform like GCP, there is a ton of things in there. It's confusing. It's really, there's a lot of cost pieces. And you're like, what is all this stuff? I'm just going to go over in vibe code. I'm just going to go over vibe code on this other app. So what is it that you're missing? And I think that is going to be our topic for next week. What is the difference between the vibe code on Lovable or on Claude Code and actually wiring something up in GCP, which most enterprises use, or AWS or Azure, any of those large platforms? There's a cost difference. There's a time difference. So what is it? And yeah, so I think we can cover that topic because I think it is good for everybody to know what is the context of using each one of those applications, and when would you want to use one versus the other, and in what cases. So
yeah, I think that's going to be perfect because it's sort of like, and this is probably oversimplifying it, but it's the same thing. If you remember when Excel came out, Excel essentially started doing a lot of the things on a smaller scale that a lot of other applications were doing, and people were using it and are still using it for everything. I think it's like number one or number two of enterprise applications. It's either the browser or Excel, as the most used applications in the enterprise space because of this versatility. And I can see it now. It's the same thing of, no longer Excel. Now we can build applications, workflows, and have things do it on a customized basis to match your workflow and how you do business, rather than you matching your business to some other workflow itself and constraining how you're doing things. So it's really it's fascinating.
Yeah. So that should be an exciting topic. We'll try to remind everybody midweek so that you don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
It's really going to be a deep dive between your vibe coding apps and the enterprise platforms, GCP, mainly GCP, because we can't go over them all. They're all complex in their own nature. So I think we can only tackle one at a time. So we'll concentrate on GCP.
Yeah, this will be perfect. Good. So
all right,
that'll be good. One other thing, just before we log off, And I'm just going to share the screen. This is a shameless plug, but for all of you out there, we are going to be hosting another webinar on the 9th of April, where we're going to, as an example, how you can basically automate and take it to another level, creating proposals, responding to RFPs, responding to government RFPs, RFIs, etc. So that's going to be on the 9th of April on 12 p.m. Eastern time. It's 9 a.m. Pacific time, etc. So we'll drop the link in the comments for this video. So check it out. Come with us. And if you can't make it, just sign up, and then we'll send you the recording, etc. So just a little plug on there, just so you can kind of see, how can you get things done where you're not, spending all this manual labor on creating documentation or figuring out if proposals or contracts are in line with compliance or legal. Have all that automated. All right, very good.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right.
All right, well, good deal, Brennan. We'll
All right.
schedule that for next week, and we'll go over that tool and how you put it together and all that good stuff. That'll be great.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
All right. Till next week.
Yep, take care.